We are now joined by Senator Angus King. Senator, thank you so much for being with us today. You indicated that you had many unanswered questions following the U.S. military attack on Venezuela. Congress was not notified of this beforehand. I understand that you recently received an additional briefing with leaders from the Trump administration. Have any of your questions been answered at this point?
I would say, Terry, that I have more questions now than I did before the briefing. And I'm not going to characterize the briefing because it was in a classified setting. But I think the fundamental question is, what was this operation really all about? Clearly, they extracted President Maduro and his wife. He's been indicted in New York on drug charges. But the fact that the president a month ago pardoned the president of Honduras, who had been convicted in a U.S. court of very similar, almost identical drug charges, tells me that this really wasn't about drugs or this guy. It now appears over the last few days and just yesterday afternoon that this really is about getting access to Venezuelan oil.
Senator, you had said in a statement last week that the Constitution lays out very clearly that Congress has the power to declare war and that you hope to have that return to legislative duties, the legislative branch. What actions do you want to see Congress taking in response to this in Venezuela? Again,
as you mentioned, the Constitution couldn't be more clear that it gives Congress the responsibility and the ability to be the ones to declare war. In this case, the president didn't even notify a small subset of Congress. It's traditional that there be a notification to something called the Gang of Eight, which is the four major leaders of the two parties, the two bodies, and then the four leaders of the intelligence committees in both houses. That didn't even happen. And of course, the president let slip the other day that he talked to the oil companies before this took place, but he didn't talk to Congress. That's not the way our system's supposed to work. We're representing the public, and the public has a right to know what's going on, what the mission is, what the commitment is all about, and then have some engagement in this process.
And Senator, I do want to ask you about Greenland. Both you and your colleague, Senator Murkowski of Alaska, are co-chairs of the Senate Arctic Caucus. The White House says that, as you pointed out, they're weighing options which could include military action to take control of Greenland. You've made clear you see no reason to own real estate, so to speak. What most concerns you about what the administration is saying right now about Greenland?
Well, I think the first thing is that they're not being truthful. There is no national security reason we need to own Greenland, period. We have had a base, a major Air Force base that's now a Space Force base in Greenland since 1951, 75 years. And the Danes and the Greenlanders have indicated a willingness to discuss with us if we need to place additional national security assets. Listen, I'm very familiar with the security situation in the Arctic, and it's something that Senator Murkowski and I have been working on for years. And the Russians have built up their shore of the Arctic Ocean, and it's something we need to take seriously. But again, you can have a military presence and a security presence without, as you mentioned, owning the real estate. The perfect example is South Korea. We have a huge military base outside of Seoul, South Korea, that's there to deter an invasion from North Korea. But we don't own South Korea. We didn't have to annex South Korea to have a national security asset in that country. Same thing with Greenland. So again, it's similar to Venezuela because it's not clearly a national security issue, which is what they're saying. I just wonder what else is going on. Are we talking about getting at natural resources, for example, rare earth minerals or whatever else that Greenland might possess? And if that's the case, that's not the America that I know, that takes over other countries, essentially invades other countries in order to take what they have. That's not who we are. It's not who we should be. And it's hard for me to take seriously the talk about Greenland when they're talking about national security, when that is just so obviously not a valid consideration.
All right, Senator Angus King, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Terry. Good to be with you.